We're
We are
going.
live.
Oh, game time.
Yeah, so at this point, we just share it with everything. I'll post it on the thing. Hey, we're live. Look at that. Look at us. And it looks great. This is fantastic.
Oh man. Okay, so you can kind of
No,
see
I can.
me. Is that what's
Oh,
happening?
oh,
Are
that's what I
we?
have to do. Shit. I have to.
Wait, is this on a delay?
Yes, it's gonna be. We're
Oh
fine.
God,
We're on the
I'm
same
listening to
page.
myself. That's always
We'll
bad.
mute your page.
We
Yeah,
good?
we're good. I have to not look at anything else while you're on screen. Shit. Hey, this is classy.
I will say that it's really disorienting to watch yourself 30 seconds in the
Yes.
past.
Welcome to
Like that is a weird
dude.
experience. I'm not sure how well I'm going to do with
It's
this.
that's my whole like Twitch career or whatever. Like you get used to it, kind of.
I feel like I'm just going to have to page away from this for a second or like cover up that part of the screen so I could just read the chat because it's just too disorienting.
It's super entertaining for me, so I'm down. So
Hey, whatever. Sweet, man.
yeah, we're just gonna let people trickle in for a little bit. Hey, Forrest, there's all of Forrest's narration. What happened? I had this perfectly cut. Why is this? Uh, there we go. No, okay. I hate this program.
Are you experiencing some technical
Yes,
difficulties?
yes, I am. See there, you'll see it in a second. So
All right, you just tell me
you're fine.
when to.
You're wonderful, and we're
All right.
live. So hey, everybody.
Oh, okay. Hi,
Hey,
everybody.
Jeff. Hey, Mia. Forrest, can you see the chat and everything?
Yeah,
Zach.
I'm looking at the chat and I have my own face covered up, so I'm not distracted by it.
By how pretty you are.
No, 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 no,
Oh
no.
yeah.
That's not what I
Oh,
meant.
that's what I mean.
Though I did appreciate the picture that you chose for our duo experience
It is my
here because that's
favorite.
still one of my yeah, it's still one of my favorite pictures. I love that picture.
So those of you that are joining
Um,
us, my name is Andrew, and this I'm joined by my favorite person in the whole wide world, Mr. Forrest Hansen. I think
oh,
everybody knows him. And hello to everybody who's here so far. Today we're talking about I think like the two most requested topics were, which by the way, we've only done this for a week, and I like to be able to say the most requested topics. There's just something cool about that. Uh, but the topics that were most requested were community, which is super abstract, but Forrest and I definitely have opinions on that, and I think we have opinions on everything. And
we're opinionated
yeah,
people.
and then judging, and that'll be a doozy because if a couple people I know show up, who I think are going to show up, the chat's going to get just flooded. But yeah, man, let's go with it. Like, let's start with community. Uh, there was somebody who gave me a really good prompt, and I have to queue it back up.
Hmm.
But I was prepared. Oh, here's what it was. I asked about a week ago. I asked what is West Coast swing culture in terms of community, right? And I got a bunch of different answers. But well, that's not true. I only got a couple answers. I got community bonded through connection with from Ashley Testerman. Jen Malcolm wrote a meritocracy, which is totally true, and that's actually where I want to start because
Yeah.
I mean I don't do it for any level of uh, gratification other than social at this point. Like I want to feel good about myself when I do it, but literally I go to conventions and stuff because like you go to conventions and because our friends do, you know.
Yeah.
But in terms of the grand scheme, yeah, like we our socio economy is based on how high ranked you are.
Oh, how well you do in contests
Yeah.
and everything associated with that. Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you have thoughts on that at all? Like just
Well, I mean, whenever you talk about all right, not to start by like making the most Forrest comment ever, as Mike Anderson liked to put it, but it depends on what you mean by
yeah,
community. So of course, in this dance, there's like a local community, there's a national community, there's an international community, and then kind of layered on top of that, there's what you're talking about, which is what's just the culture of the
yeah,
dance. Like, what is the whether that's the vibe of the people in a given room at a given point in time, or that's how we think about West Coast swing more
Right.
broadly, or that's do we have more of a focus on, say, the competitive aspect of the dance or the communal and social aspect of the dance. And I think that what's really interesting about West Coast is that it's a dance that is simultaneously a social and competitive dance.
Yeah.
Most dances aren't really that. If you look at ballroom, for instance, there's a lot of ballroom social dancing, but it is almost entirely a competitive dance. The focus at any quote unquote convention for ballroom is what's going on competitively at any given moment in
Right.
time, and that's really different from West Coast, where you have events that kind of cater to different subsets of the community. And there are a lot
How
of events
many?
that try to
But
kind of
here's the
be all
thing:
things to all people.
how many
Mhm.
conventions do we have that really cater to the social side? And I'm actually asking.
That's a great question. And the I don't know what the answer is to that in terms of like the raw numbers of that, but I think that what you're suggesting there, which is that we've tacked further and further in the direction of being truly a competitive dance over the last 10 to 15 years,
Yeah.
um, and that's really increasingly become the emphasis. And I think that what we're starting to see a little bit is not a backlash to that per se, but a little bit of a rebound in the other direction, where now there are these events popping up, whether it's something like Endless Summer Swing, which is really focused on training and technique and kind of cultivating your ability to be a competitive
That's
dancer,
cool.
but without competition.
Okay.
Or something like what you kind of proposed when you were talking about doing an event that was truly just community focused, or for instance, the Westy Woodstock thing that I think that that was Doug
That's
Sultan.
Doug's idea.
That's Okay, so that's Doug's idea, yeah. And Doug's great, and he's the exact kind of guy that would come up with something
Yeah.
like that. Where you are seeing these events pop up that are more just purely community focused. And I think that kind of balancing act that we're all sort of doing here drives a lot of the great things about the community, but it also drives a lot of the problems that we run
Yeah.
into, right? Because you just see different people who think that the weight should be put in different places, and we're never going to entirely agree on
Yeah.
that.
And I don't think we really need to.
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
for me, like maybe this will piss somebody off, but like I don't see. I feel like there's an obligation in people's heads to get a specific thing out of every single convention. Like I hear more
sure.
complaining about like I didn't do well in competition. I walked by the pros and I was so nervous to talk to them. You know that hierarchy of where the hell do we stand in our social strata. I think that's harped on more than anything. Yet most of the emphasis seems to be paid to where we're at competitively. I don't know. I don't like my main pet peeve is hearing people bitch and moan about their contest placements because we're all guilty of it.
Sure. Yeah. Now we're getting into the
That's
good
what I'm talking
stuff. I
about.
like
Like,
it.
well, easy in, but yeah, to complain about your contest placements and then say like we have this great community where social is first and it's a social dance. I'm like something ain't right. Something's not lining up.
Sure. Yeah.
Hey,
There's a certain irony there.
yeah. So I guess ultimately, well, not ultimately, I shouldn't say that. For a lot of people, it comes down to do they even know what they're going to a convention for? Like, why are you
Yeah.
dancing?
Hmm.
And Delancey asks that every single class, regardless of level. And it's the greatest thing in the world to see the blank face because
Sure.
why? I mean, why do
Yeah.
you do it? Why? I know you came
Well,
from ballroom and we've talked a ton, but
yeah.
why are you in the West Coast
Yeah.
crowd?
So why I'm in West Coast? I can say really honestly that if I didn't have so many friends who were doing West Coast, I wouldn't have gotten so sucked
Yeah,
into it. Like what initially snared me was absolutely the fact that I was meeting all these people that I really liked. And I developed all of these really strong friendships, and obviously fame and fortune,
as
as
Tony said,
Tony
yeah.
Schubert
Can
is
we hang
mentioning
on
in
a
the
second?
chat.
I'm going to cut you off because who's
Okay.
here? Because
A lot of
a
people
lot
are
of
here. I'm
people,
actually like really taken
I
aback
know,
by how many people are watching this right
like
now.
James and like Summer, and then it gets to like Ben McHenry and Tony Schubert, Brandon
Okay.
Goutreau.
Brandon's here, Shay's here, Jen, the whole
This is
squad's here.
this is
It's
really cool.
great.
Thank you everybody for joining us. Please continue, Forrest.
Yeah, so and we're already getting a lot of like and Brandon's just like, what on earth is going on here? I like it. So we're
Yeah.
already getting a lot of like good commentary on why people got into it. And I do think that West Coast remains a dance that's a social dance
Yeah.
first. And if you don't like social dancing, if you don't like this dance for what it is, as a form of artistic expression, you're never really going to be happy in this community. That being said, I think that the competitive side of the dance is one of the things that has really driven its growth. Um, and the more that people get into the element of it that involves the competitive drive and that fulfillment from seeing yourself doing well in a contest, or all of a sudden some champion dancer asks you to social dance, or whatever it might be. Sorry, I just got distracted by Tina's
What
comment
is?
there.
Are you seeing
Um,
comments that I'm not seeing? Wow. Okay.
I'm on the ball, man. I'm
I
paying
no like
attention. I'm right
my
there.
okay. I don't know what's going on. It did it last week, but my feed of the comments does not refresh, and then it like just there's like 30.
Oh no, I'm as fresh as it gets over here. But okay, so to return to that point, I do think that people kind of bag on the competitive side of the dance sometimes, when the reality is that most people who are really, really, really into West Coast swing
Yeah.
right now, if you just look at it in terms of total numbers, I think a lot of them got snared initially by the fact that there are competitions, and it's like pulling a slot machine, right? It's an addictive element. It's you go in, and because of the style of contest that we have within a Jack and Jill, you're not sure who you're
Yeah.
going to draw. You kind of get a different outcome every time, and that just for a human's brain is very
Yeah.
addictive. Like that's how addiction kind of works, and it's why the style of contest that we have is so compelling for people. I think because anyone truly can win in any given contest because your partner varies and your song
Yeah.
varies.
I mean, it
So.
is like Vegas odds at best some of the time. Um,
Oh, and as an aside, sorry, I'm just like soapboxing
no,
really
do
hard
it.
right now. That's the reason you shouldn't care about your contest
Yeah,
results that much.
exactly.
Like the best people in this dance do not win all of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Tony's totally right. It can be really destructive because you get that snare about being really fixated on your results, but then you have minimal ability to control them in a West Coast swing contest. Like, out of all of the competitive endeavors that I can immediately think of, I feel like West Coast is one of the ones where there is the least connection between your outcome and your input.
Yeah.
Like you have control over so few elements of a given contest dance. Why are we freaking out about our results when there's just like such a loose
Because
relationship there?
it
So
is what
something
you
to
say, and I mean
yes.
it's easy to say, and I say that it's easy because I agree with you. It's easy
Sure.
to say like why are we focusing so hard on this, but at the same time that whole thing of this is very like having a competition. It's something that's fairly tangible. I won, I lost, whatever. It's a what's the word? It's a contradictory sort of environment. I want to do well. I
Hmm.
want to be the best. I want to do this, but at the same time, I don't give a fuck about what I place, and therefore I'm great. Like that takes people forever. Like if they're lucky, until they're like an all-star champion to not give a damn. And usually it's because you hit all-star. I'll just speak for myself. When I hit all-star, I was like, this is where I live now. Like I
Yeah. Oh, I believe me. I more or less feel the same way.
yeah, like I have no real depending on the convention I'm at, I'm a champion or I'm an all-star. Like
Yeah.
and that's just sort of where you live. So having that glass ceiling is actually a really great thing for me personally because it takes away
Because you.
yeah, it
Yeah.
takes away whatever pressure I may have had. I can still go out and teach and
Totally.
make money if I want to, but I also like I don't there's not the pressure to be like I need to place first at the US Open with my new routine because I just don't give a fuck. So,
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Like the focus isn't on contest for you, so you're kind of free to explore your dancing in like a more
yeah.
organic way, right? To backtrack to a comment real quick,
I
Jen
was yeah.
mentioned that she believes that you have total control over prelims and semis, and I 99% agree with her. Um, I think that for me, I care honestly at this, like just 100% honest. I care way more about making a final than I care about how I do
Yeah.
in that final. like way, way, way dramatically more. And Hannah, yes, I have changed my clothing since last night. I just happen to be wearing the same sweater, damn it.
I'd like to point out somebody who just joined the chat. Her name is Rachel Lietzskog. She's from Portland, and she was the person who taught me my very first partner dance class. She is
Oh,
my
that's
dance mom.
adorable.
She runs Dance with Joy. Go to her stuff. I disagree heavily with you control prelim semis success. Like, but I agree with you 100% on I don't give a damn once we get into the final. You know, at that point, especially in the division that we compete in, we got to sit on the chairs. I get to usually hang out with you, and we get to talk about our buddies and how interesting they are. Like that,
Sure.
that pretty much, it's a win if you get through the cut.
Mhm. Yeah, so two things. The first thing is that kind of do you control your prelims and semis, and I think that's a really interesting topic. It kind of connects to judging, which is one of the things that we sort of
Yeah.
wanted to get into. But to kind of respond to the second one first, they really should just or no, they shouldn't do this, but it would be really funny is if they like mic'd and
No.
videoed the lineup in the back
God.
during a spotlight because the shit that gets said back there is out
Well,
of control. And honestly, like the higher up you go in level, so I remember like doing an intermediate spotlight or like an advanced spotlight, and everyone's just
yeah.
like everyone just still and they just get up and applaud and they're terrified the whole time. But the like All Stars pretty bad. Oh my God, if you ever like make a if you're ever fortunate enough to like whether you're doing it through emceeing or dancing or whatever else. I can't speak for the followers, but at least for the leads. To sit next to some of those leads during a champs final, it is next level. Like there is some stuff that is getting
Dude,
taught.
okay, you
Um,
remember
it's fantastic.
San Francisco near the bay sidecar dance sensation
Pseudo
pseudo?
dance
Yeah.
sensation. Yes, I do
Um,
remember.
Shout
Shout
out to
out to
Chuck
Chuck
Brown.
Brown.
Because no joke, that was still one of my favorite conventions. Even as like,
I
it was
had a great
awesome.
time.
It was like
Yeah.
chaos. Is like to quote John Mulaney, it was dogs leading cats. Like it was insane. So or what is it? Cats leading horses or something. So to be I emceed the champs division and I sat next to like was it like Benji Schwimmer and I won't repeat what he said, but it was hilarious. And then I repeated it on the mic
Oh, I
and he
remember
just like
that.
it was like this weird
Oh
squirrel
man, I
moment.
remember that.
And
Yeah.
maybe because he didn't seem to have a problem. He was just like, oh, somebody called me out on it. Cool. Like there's an interaction now between that weird line of like, I don't know, ephemeral greatness or actual greatness, whatever your definition is.
Yeah.
And what is it? Reconnected everybody to what the fuck was going on there. Hey, oh, Chuck Brown's actually here.
Sure, yeah. Shout out to Chuck Brown. We don't have to do the oral history of San Francisco dance sensation during this episode, but I feel like that should be an episode at some point in the future because I can't think of an event that was both like more doomed and more fantastic at the same time. I had a
It was
great
so
time
good.
at that event. That was an awesome event, but like everything conspired. Oh man, he is
You guys
95% here. Jack Johnson will be putting
There
in
is
an
no
appearance.
more on point and sarcastic and wonderful chat than what is going on today. This is pretty fantastic.
Yeah, the chat's popping off right now.
Hey, Shanti writes, also hi Shanti. I care way more about creating a magical, organic, connected dance than I do in my placements. I've become more bummed. Yeah,
Sure.
me too. I've become more bummed out and disappointed in myself if I feel I failed in showing up that way despite what I place. Yeah, for me, like, there's probably always something that I quote unquote fail at in the middle of a contest, and that was actually going to be part of today, but there's no way that I was gonna get it to work.
We can cover all
Yeah,
the
and I'd
things,
rather
yeah.
we talk about what we're talking about, but essentially, like, failure after a certain point doesn't have to be a negative. You know, it's not like you're dying because you missed a triple. Uh, tri-
I mean,
there
unless
it is!
you're
I
Brad at
knew
New
it.
City,
Oh,
you
yeah,
like that?
but what? Right there, actually, that's a great little segue because I talked about him last weekend, and we talk about his ass all the time. because
Sure.
he admittedly, like, he knows he's not quote unquote as good technical dancer as other people, but so his triples may not be there at one point, but he gets rewarded because he's such a damn good showman, and his like his comedic timing. I'm not sure there's too many people funnier, like legitimately funnier than Brad on the floor.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
he's getting rewarded.
He has a.
Go on, I'm sorry.
Mhm. Oh no, he has a great dance sense of humor. I mean, he has a great sense of humor. I love Brad, but particularly through his dancing, he really knows how to kind of emphasize the sort of the tongue-in-cheek
Yeah,
moments in a dance, and that's part of the game. And this, I think, really smoothly gets us towards judging and what gets rewarded and what doesn't get rewarded and all of that good stuff. But it's what's your goal
yeah,
during a dance, right? Like, is your goal to go out there and win champions while you're dancing in
yeah.
intermediate? Is your goal to go out there and have, as Shanti said, like a really wonderfully connected and intimate might not be quite the right word, but intimate partner dance with somebody else where you're really paying attention to each other, you're really taking care of each other. Is your goal to just go out there and
Yeah.
have a lot of fun? Like, these are all really, really good goals, and you'll notice that none of them had anything to do with how well you end up
Yeah.
doing in that contest. Like, I think that executing any of those goals at a really, really high level allows you allows you to succeed in the contest. Now, the exception to this, as Jen points out, is as if your goal is to kung fu kick your partner in the head so hard that their
I can't
glasses fly
believe that
off.
is
Which
Jen's profile picture.
I
It's the
love that it's a
best.
profile picture. It's so good. It makes me so so
Did I
so
tell you?
deeply
I
happy.
don't think I told you, but so after last week when it was just like I was just talking and people were being awesome and responding in the chat,
Yeah.
I got two messages specifically about bringing up David leading a kick in his face. I may be wrong, but I don't remember saying that dickishly, I believe the term is.
I yeah.
I just was like, this, David suffers from the same thing that I do occasionally, where it's like, I get amped, I want to do a thing, but the thing doesn't work, and so I try another
Sure.
thing. And
Oh, I
I
think
think
we've all had
everybody
that
does,
moment.
yeah.
Like, okay, so it's all right, and I'm going to say this, and this is not a humble brag. It's actually the opposite. It's possible that I've never had that moment, but that's a problem with my dancing, not a good thing
You've
about
had
my
that moment.
dancing.
I was there.
Oh, which
They
would have been are you
really,
talking
they
about?
all
Because the answer
blend.
is probably okay.
Okay, you've never had a
I
moment
mean,
where you've like fallen in front of 1,000 people or gotten kicked in the face.
I don't think so. I've dropped my partner once. That was fun. Not my favorite. Um, But I mean, my point in general, sorry to, so we don't get bogged down in like the specifics of this, just generally speaking, I tend to err on the side of taking not enough risks. And I think that that's actually a weakness in my dancing right now, particularly in my competitive dancing. Social, it's a little bit different, but in my competitive dancing, I don't do enough stuff. And I don't kind of swing for
Yeah.
the fences as much as I could. And different people are comfortable living on different sides of that performative spectrum. Jen and David had that moment in their dance because they effing went for it. Okay, they were in the middle of this cool shape, and it was a weird position, and they tried their best, and
Yeah.
things went south. I don't personally, just having been there, what in the moment of watching it live, I did not have the experience of being like Jen kicked him in the head
Yeah.
or David kicked himself in the head. Like I just it was just a
Yeah.
thing that happened, and that happens sometimes. Mike's pointing to a dance that I think that you're talking about the dance that I had with Shanti at Boogie by the Bay one year, which I was really enjoyed. And you're right. If you watch the video of that dance, you could see Shanti like extracting me from my comfort zone, like through the process of the dance. It's a great video. And yeah, it was. If anything, that dance was a real learning experience for me.
Yeah. I mean, if there's anybody who would be your polar opposite, it's Shanti. You know,
And
that's what I'm saying.
stylistically, maybe. I mean, yeah,
Not as a
I
human.
really,
Like we're just talking.
sure,
Yeah.
sure, sure. I mean, like in the stance in general, really, one of the many things that I love about it is that there is space for so many different types, and that there is space for so many different ways to interpret the technique, different ways to interpret the music, different ways to interpret how you care about this dance and what
Yeah.
you choose to value. And that seems to be kind of the running theme here that we're having so far, is that what do you choose
Yeah.
to value theme. And I do think that for most people, you're never going to make a dollar
Yeah.
doing this dance. And it's good to kind of have a come to Jesus with yourself about that fact. There was a Westy discussion of the day post. Let's not get into Westy discussion of the day.
Whoa, is
But
there?
there was a post a
Hold
little
on.
while
I've
ago.
been out of the loop. No, no,
It's
no.
fine.
What
It's
is
fine.
this?
Don't
Okay.
stay out of the loop. No,
I
so
just don't know what it is.
there was a post a little while ago. Yeah, there was a post a little while ago where somebody asked a question about like, hey, I want to dance, or I'm loosely paraphrasing and I'm poorly paraphrasing here. It was that, hey, if I like something along the lines of, if I become an all-star, will I be able to make
Oh,
a living
okay.
from this dance? I'm loosely paraphrasing. And that's kind of doing the politest possible paraphrasing of the question, to be perfectly frank with you. And the thread was basically filled with people saying, no, you probably won't. Um, and that's the reality of this dance. Like, this is not a dance that people get into, as Tony put it, for fame
Yeah.
and glory. Like, that's not why we're here. So if that's why you're here, you should probably try a
Well,
different dance
see.
style. That would be
I
like
would
my
argue
first
that you can
recommendation to you.
totally, because fame is a very subjective thing, that you can get into it for fame and glory, maybe not money. Like,
Yeah, sure, totally. Yeah, and I guess we're running into just like, how do you
yeah,
define fame
yeah,
and
and that's a
glory,
whole other
right?
thing.
So,
So, let's I guess move on from Westy discussion of the day.
yeah, we can keep wondering. Oh,
I don't
please.
even. The only reason I asked is because I literally just wanted to know what that is. I don't.
Yeah, it's a Facebook page where people ask questions. I think that it started in really well-meaning ways, and kind of ended up just being a
Oh,
hub of drama.
like
And
things
yeah,
do.
so
Um,
as
Donna
sometimes happens in
Tomasino
life.
writes, I think the competition thing has gotten a bit out of hand. So many categories, takes up so much time at conventions, and so much emphasis is put on it, which is kind of what we've been talking about in a way. Most competitions, except the quirky, unusual ones, are not too interesting or for those not participating in them. Why do we care so much about what someone else thinks of our dancing? Because we're human and we want validation,
Yeah, we're running into like, this is a big
which
picture topic.
we can spend more time
Yeah,
on the big picture topic, but in terms, let's just talk about in terms of um, let's talk about the categories for just a split second.
sure, yeah,
I agree. I think there are too many, but I'm also kind of a hard ass when it comes to age-based competitions. I think they're
mm,
past a certain point. I think they're kind of a joke. I think like, well, hear me out, because Marianne Nunez can whip my ass in not so many words.
sure,
And
yeah,
she is
gotcha, totally.
she's masters now, right? She's over 50 or whatever it is. Yeah.
So,
And she can still compete and win, and because this is not like an athletic dance on at its basis level. And even if
yeah,
it was, I'm sure she could backflip. And it's same thing. Like I remember watching like Tori when she was sub 18 just destroy
yeah,
on the champs floor, and then she'd go and compete. Yeah.
just crushing people.
So for in terms of those, I totally understand why they're there. I personally don't really like them. And as far as like the time that it takes to do them, that's just the nature of doing business with competitions, man. Like go to any hip hop or especially a breakdancing, like a b-boy competition. You're there all
Yeah,
weekend. Like there is a comp going on at every moment, and people take the time.
yep,
Yeah,
ballroom's
exactly.
exactly the same way.
And people take the time if they want to go and dance and jam or work on their stuff. They take the time and they go find a side room. They bring a speaker. They take it upon themselves to make what fun they will.
All right, Can I have a? I have like
Yeah,
so many comments on everything that just happened, but can we just focus on that little tiny thing that you said at the end there for 1 second? That idea of kind of creating
yeah,
your own learning environment. So I think that that's something that we've gotten, and I'm using kind of the global we for the West Coast community, and particularly for people who are in advanced or
Yeah.
all-star, things like that, that we've gotten a lot better at recently. Because I remember maybe 3 or 4 years ago, this was happening a little bit, but then it died for a while, and now it's coming back, where it really feels like people are being more motivated about
Yeah.
finding their own training and about not just leaving their training to the event or saying, I'll take one private and then I'm good. But people are kind of going out of their way to step to the side during an event, find some like minded people, and actually work on their dancing in an active way. And for me, I think that that's wonderful. And I think that that's where we kind of have to go as a dance for the quality of the dancing to persist and to increase over time. What you hear a lot is you hear a lot of complaining about like what kind of training events offer. There are too many contests. There aren't enough of this workshop that I like. There's not enough social dancing. There's too much this. There was a period where everyone wanted live music, and then like 8 months later,
Yeah.
nobody wanted live music. Like people are fickle. You know what I mean? And what's nice about West Coast is that you can really create what you want to create with it. Like no one is stopping you from finding 8 buddies whose dancing you like and going in a room and working with them. Like literally no one is
Yeah.
stopping you from doing that. So you can really, I think, take matters into your own hands and kind of reclaim your
Yeah.
own agency a little bit. And I think it's great that I feel like I'm starting to see people do that more frequently, and
I'm glad to hear
that's
it
really
because,
wonderful.
I bail. I've been in and out for the past 2 years. I'll go to like one or two conventions. And
Hmm.
that's kind of why. Like that and money, but that's a whole other thing. Like, but,
Sure.
again, I go for social more than anything else. I go to see you and our people. Um,
Hmm.
but I don't get the same rush or build that I get when I go and work on jazz or hip hop or contemporary. So I'm glad. I'm just.
Okay.
I guess all I'm
So
saying is I'm very glad that that's happening. That people are working on their stuff.
yeah, and so just to ask you a question real quick, why do you think that that is? Is that because you feel that training emphasis more when you do jazz or contemporary or something like that? Is it something about the
It's
style of
instantly
the dance
gratifying.
itself?
Your growth isn't dependent on another person understanding what you're trying to go for. It's not dependent on
Sure.
music that you've heard a billion and one times. Like, that I have like I actually really want you to do. Maybe we can get like Koichi or someone as well. I don't know who. Somebody to talk about DJing, the music on the scene as a whole, and all that kind of thing. But I typically have a problem with the music that I hear at competitions. Not in
Okay.
competition, at conventions. Rose City was a pretty nice exclusion to that. But for the most part, I go to a convention and it's like, yep, that's the fifth time that I heard, pick your favorite song. S- Yeah,
Insert
or
pop
like,
song here. Yeah.
people complain that we don't get enough blues music. And then it's the same five blues songs, and I get why. I just don't personally dig it. I have no like
Sure.
earth-shattering point there. It's just I don't like it.
Yeah, I think music's
Yeah,
a tough
for sure.
conversation. And the so if so I spend my most of my time at this point when I'm working in the community,
Yeah,
still working as a DJ. And this is a whole can of worms, but to do like the 1 second take on it, obviously everyone's musical taste is
yeah,
highly variable. And you have the people who love a song versus hate a song, love blues, hate blues, whatever it might be. What I do think that we can get a lot better at is we can get better at looking at DJing as a important and meaningful part of an event, and frankly, compensating it appropriately. Because there is a certain economic prerogative here, and what you see with a lot of events is that the
yeah,
budgets are extremely tight. Just as nobody goes into West Coast dancing to make money, nobody goes into running West Coast events to make money.
yeah.
That's one of like the biggest fallacies that I hear sometimes about the community is like, oh, these event directors, they're just like they're not paying out enough contests. They're just like keeping it for themselves. And I'm like, wait, what are you?
Yeah,
You're
let
just
me
a
let me
crazy
settle that
person.
right now. And Chuck
Um,
is in the chat too, so he could probably say any number of things. But like,
yeah, like there is not a lot of money to be made
yeah,
running West
dude,
Coast swing
it's
events. Let's be super
especially
straight
not with
about
the
that,
like.
just for
Again,
starters.
and there's another thing that would be a good topic is maybe how you make money, or what is a successful event, or what is the deal with our
Sure.
current format,
Yeah.
because the format that we have is bunko, and it only reaches out to one type of dancer or one type of event goer. It's not it I don't want to get into it, but the way that it's set up now, there's no way you'll make a huge amount of cash. It's just not possible.
Yeah. And to kind of loop that back, it often feels like DJs are kind of the last
Yeah,
slot that an event fills. You know, like they're the last place where money is spent. They're the last place where people are hired, whatever it might be. And and that's like I understand the economic prerogative there. There's just not a lot of money in the system, so it's hard to become incentivized to be a DJ. And what happens is there are people who come up through the system and they want their opportunity and they're inexpensive. And that's perfectly wonderful, and they should be given an opportunity as appropriate, and it's good to be inexpensive. But what you see over time is that this kind of pushes event directors towards hiring people without necessarily a lot of
yeah,
actual experience in the job that they're doing. Um, and that creates consequences, you know? Some of those consequences are really wonderful. I think that we're really, really, really
yeah,
good at discovering talent. Like as a community, just in general, we are so good at discovering talent. I think that we're less good at kind of rewarding that talent once it becomes discovered. And that's something that is a really tricky balance. And I don't have like a good immediate answer to that. But I do think that if you're an event and you want to value your social dancing, you should value people who social dance, who are fun,
yeah.
good dancers, particularly on your pro staff, and you should value the people who play your music
Yep.
during your social dancing. Like that's what matters for a social dance. So I don't know. That's just my as a DJ. Obviously, I'm
But
probably pretty biased in this,
whatever.
but that's my bias two
People
cents.
will be
Yeah,
biased because of the life they lead. And yes, and actually, I completely agree with you.
sure.
I want to go back up because Christy Bream uh, wrote a lot of
Yeah, a
great
lot of
comments.
great
Thank
comments
you
coming in
guys.
here.
Really. Oh my God.
Yeah, for
Because
real.
this could be, I mean, Forrest and I talk at great length whenever we see each other about everything, but you make it something special. So Christy writes, when your
Yeah,
critical
for sure.
examples of age-based competitions are champion level dancers being able to beat people of any age, that is discounting the much larger pool of average dancers. Or folks who have entered the community much later in life who would like opportunities to demonstrate some proficiency. Right, so pros over 50 can kick anyone's ass. Our age division's meant for those folks or the rest of us. I'm not saying they're meant for anybody specific. I'm saying in terms of time and what I prefer, I just don't like them. In no way do I think they are invalid. And are they meant for those folks or the rest of us? They're meant for that age group. Like if you're, it says that you're over a certain age, you can compete. It doesn't matter if you're, you know, what was the example I used? Marianne Nunez versus like Lady Jane, who it's her first convention. You know, it doesn't make a
Sure.
difference. I just prefer fewer competitions focusing on just skill rather than this is my opportunity to perform because I haven't had the opportunity, or this is just focusing on an age group. I just don't. I have never agreed with it. That's all. And
I mean, I think that,
please,
not to cut you off, I think that
yes,
access is important.
100%.
So making people feel like they have access to something where they feel comfortable, where they can be
Yeah,
comfortable in a competitive environment. I think that that's all great and that's all really good. I do also, I mean, I have mixed feelings about age-based contests, and I think that's worth acknowledging that I don't qualify for any age-based
yeah,
contests, and my opinions on this may change as I get older.
good point.
There is a certain natural bias that kind of appears there, right? But I just think that giving people an opportunity to be competitive in an environment where they're really comfortable
Yeah,
is really, really good. Um, Also, at the same time, balancing an event schedule is
yeah,
really, really hard. And finding enough space for the social dancing that we expect. Because to your point, Andrew, we have way more social dancing at a West Coast convention than like any other
yeah,
form of dance has social dancing. It is an
yeah.
enormous priority, and that's good. It should be. We're doing a social dance. But that does create kind of cascading consequences for some of
Yep.
the other things.
Same page.
Yeah. All right. What was in that
Oh,
shaker bottle, Andrew?
it's a lot of stuff. It's like What's in there? It's I've got my multivitamin, I've got creatine and a weight
Uh,
gain thing and a protein thing, and it's my post workout shake. And it's also because I don't get enough food ever. So my trainer put me on
yeah,
what looks to be watery poop, and tastes.
I know. I saw you at Rose City. You're
So
looking
thank
pretty
you, sir.
swole,
So are
buddy.
you. You always look good. See, this is why I wanted you to co-host. Is it because we'll just compliment each other most of the time? And Farad, I might say your name wrong, and I'm sorry, but he writes, "Why are DJs playing terrible versions of great songs? What is the problem with the original ones? Seriously, 90% of mashups and remixes are not cool and fun to dance to." So, uh, let's try to be quick about this. I just thought it was a fun fucking comment. Why are they playing
Sure.
terrible versions? That is your opinion, and they like the song. What is the problem with the original ones? They
Yeah,
get played a lot, and mashups and remixes are a great way to keep those songs that people know but make them a little fresh. There's, and 90% of the mashups and remixes are not cool and fun to dance to. If you don't like the music you're hearing, have a conversation with your DJ when they're not DJing, in my opinion.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, for me, I'm always pretty open to people approaching me when I'm in the booth and I'm working, but there's definitely a time and a place for certain
Yeah.
kinds of contests or certain kinds of conversations. Like you're welcome to request something. I'm also just
Yeah.
welcome to not play it. Like both of those things are simultaneously true, right? So we kind of just have to be okay
Okay,
with that.
we're starting to run a little dry on time, so let's move into our next topic. Actually, wait a minute. Because there's a couple more answers that I just wanted to shout out as a thank you to people for responding to this stuff. When I asked what is West Coast swing culture, what is community, Vivian Young wrote knowing how to dance West Coast, and that's probably the simplest, straightforward answer. What? Yeah, we're all bonded by a similar style. Stephen White wrote, Stephen White, well, I'll be damned. He wrote, fluid, music based, community oriented, but travel focused, rapidly growing to encompass many other countries, originating in competition historically, and embracing competitiveness as a. I have a whole, like, history lesson for people one of these
Oh,
days. But I want to get Deborah on here for that shit. And a fuel for social interactions. Then Austin said, yeah,
quick interjection. If you're ever at an event where Robert Royston is doing his History of Swing seminar, you
it's
should
awesome.
absolutely go to it. It's pretty great. Yeah.
And
Okay.
and
Keep on going.
Austin writes, "Do you mean flow?" Emily Ching, he means flow. I don't get. There's a lot of these flow jokes. Could you just like tell me what the hell that's? How's that? How's it funny? Why is that funny?
Yes, I absolutely can tell you what that's about. Okay, so the flow thing is that Glenn, there's as probably most of the people who are watching this know, there's kind of an ongoing conversation in the West Coast community about whether or not we should change the name for a
Oh,
variety of reasons. That's a
okay.
whole other conversation. Okay. Inside of that context, Glenn Ball posted a Facebook post. I forget, it was like a couple. I think it was like a couple months ago at this point, where he said something like, "Oh, we finally renamed the dance. We're going to be unveiling the name in like April or something." And because it's Facebook, this created just like an absolute firestorm in the comments with everyone just losing their mind. And then Glenn had to like step back in and say something to the effect of, "Guys, it's just a joke. We were talking at late night at some convention and kind of bullshitting about this topic, and we came up with the name Flow because we found that if you substituted Flow for swing or like West Coast swing in most convention names, you get some pretty fantastic names." Um, so that's where the whole Flow
Okay.
meme comes from.
Now let's move it.
Yeah,
Let's. All right. We're talking about judging now. This will be fun. This won't like hit any
great.
buttons of anybody in the chat.
Oh, sure.
We have about
Fantastic.
20 minutes left. It's plenty of time to piss people off. It'll be awesome. So this comes from also if you
Great.
have topics that you want, I'm
It's
excited.
my favorite.
At least it'll open up conversation on something that I'm sure people are already passionate about. Uh, so John, if you have topics that you want us to talk about, if you want things explored, and you're not able to be in chat that day, please send it to me or Forrest, and and will let us know if you want us to shout out your name or not. Sometimes being anonymous is better. So anyway, Jonathan Taylor writes, the short of what he's proposing here is like, what are judges looking for? And he gives two examples of because John does he judges for several different types of dance, West Coast ballroom, various things. And ballroom alone, there's like, how many, Forrest? How many things on like standard ballroom do you dance or judge?
It depends on how
Well, let's
broad
say
you want to
like,
go with that definition. In
yeah,
like conventional ballroom, so in American Smooth there are 4 or 5 dances. In American Rhythm there are 4 or 5 dances. In International Latin and International Standard
jeez.
there are 5 dances each. So it's not uncommon for, and I mean, often judges stick to their style, but it's not uncommon in a given weekend for you to be judging 15 separate dance styles. So
Cool. Uh, Tony
yeah.
writes, oh shit.
Or 15 separate
Right.
dances, I should say, not
Tony
dance
writes, oh
styles. But
shit,
yeah,
I'm grabbing a drink for this. And Tina writes, talk about how much you love each other. What do you think we've been doing this whole time, baby?
that's,
Okay, so
oh man.
yeah, judging, like
Yeah,
again,
judging.
the things that Jonathan Taylor cite are he's talked to a number of judges in West Coast, and they talk about they'd rather have a show dancer, basically somebody who's good at solo dancing, a dancer which he wrote this a little weird, so you'll have to bear with me. I've talked to many West Coast swing judges, and I've heard their theory is they prefer a solo or show dancer, a dancer which doesn't necessarily connect with their partner as good, who may be off time, with zero swing content and less technical dancer, aka no anchoring, while other judges prefer swing content, a technical dancer who takes anchors and connects with the partner. Many dancers find it hard to compete when each event is a different judging style. I'm curious of what people think. Yeah. So you want to start? Cool.
No. No, but I will. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there.
Pick your favorite.
Okay, let's begin at the beginning. And the beginning is that I don't. So okay, so there are people who value traits that are not necessarily pure rhythmic traditional West Coast swing dancing. And I
Yeah.
think, frankly, that's fine. If you want to place your emphasis as a judge on a dancer's quality of movement, on their ability to interpret interpret lyricism, on their musicality, on their whatever, rather than their quote unquote West Coast swing technique, I think that um,
Yeah.
that's a reasonable way to judge. I would caution people to characterize people with
Yeah.
overgeneralizations, to be perfectly frank. I don't think that that first judge is an actual judge. I think that that first judge is a false characterization of a viewpoint that, in its heart, is kind of reasonable. So that's kind of my
Yeah.
pairing of what he's trying to say there. Now, to the broader question of like, what should we care about as judges? For a little context on this, I judge maybe 5 weekends a year at West Coast conventions. I do not pretend to be one of the people who are on the circuit judging every weekend. They obviously have much more experience in this than I do. But that being said, I think that the problem, quote unquote, with judging right now in this dance is that we put so much power in the hands of our judges because of the fact that we haven't
Yeah.
really defined what West Coast swing is. Um, and I think it's okay that we haven't defined what West Coast swing is, but the broader the definition is of what West Coast swing is, and let's be honest with ourselves here, to stand on a soapbox for a second, timing, teamwork, and technique is not a judging criteria. That is hot garbage. That doesn't even mean anything. Like it's total garbage. Get it out of here. I have no idea what it means. Should you judge on timing, teamwork, and technique? Yeah, absolutely you should. What does that mean? I have no fucking clue. Okay, so let's just be clear that when we are saying these are the criteria on which you're judging, if you have no clarity over how those criteria are being interpreted,
Yeah.
they're useless criteria. It's nonsense words. It's total garbage. So if we have a situation where there's a ton of power in the hands of our judges, It's really, really important to
Yeah.
educate those judges really well. And it's really important to hire good judges. So much as I'm saying, like, pay your DJs more, get good DJs, I'm saying pay your
Yeah.
judges more, get good judges, or put more of an emphasis in the stands on getting really, really, really qualified judges to judge all the levels of competition. Because the bottom line is that the consequences of the mistakes that you see in All Star are created in Novice. That's period, end of story. If someone is rewarded for doing a kind of movement, for instance, as is being said in the comment, the question from Jonathan that came in, if that judge is judging Novice and they reward the dancer who performs with the flash and trash, to kind of put it that way, and that dancer gets to intermediate, what are they going to think? They're going to think, hey, you know what I should do? I should do more of the stuff that got me out of Novice. Okay. And so the story
Yeah.
continues on through time. So it's just as valuable to have good, solid judges and good, solid judging criterion for the lower divisions as it is for the upper ones. If anything,
Yeah.
I would say that it's probably
Agreed.
more
I mean,
important.
Brandy had this really great layer of shit to say, and I won't even bother paraphrasing, because she had, yeah, it was supposed to
It
be,
was
yeah.
post
But
paraphrasing. Yeah.
essentially, it's just like you will judge different. I won't paraphrase, but a bit of paraphrase. You will ideally you're judging different divisions differently. You know, and for
Yeah.
me, the timing, technique, teamwork, blah blah, that whole thing is it's all subjective. A lot of people are saying it in chat. It's so subjective. Uh, I dance with one of the most talented dancers I've ever worked with, very regularly. Her name is Jenny Wyndham. She's here in Portland, and we both like go off about how we love each other's dancing, but I cannot hear everything that she hears. It's the most bizarre disconnect. She will pick things out of the music, like these spaces between and these other things that I just don't hear. And I will do the same thing when I choreograph. So if you have, how many judges do we usually have? Like 6 or 7, 5 to 7. You have 5 to 7
Sure.
different opinions. Never mind if there's a chief judge involved, on what timing even is. Because I've talked to somebody who's got a background in modern. That's very different than my jazz background. You know? The only thing that I've heard so far that I really agree with in terms of timing is, are you at least on the beat? You know, when it's an obvious pulse, like, because flat out we don't fucking dance to swing music. In, you know, am I wrong?
Yes. Yeah. So no, you're not wrong. And what's interesting is that the kind of different conversations that we're having here have all sort of merged together
Yeah.
as we come towards the end of our chat here. And it's how we started with talking about like community and about caring about your competitive results versus
Yeah.
having more of a focus on your social dancing. Then we talked about music. Now we're talking about judging. Kind of at the end of the day, they're all sort of the same
Yeah.
conversation because the music, to a certain
Yeah.
extent, dictates what can be judged. To mention Brandy again, during Rose City Swing at the very end of it, she and Deborah kind of had this,
Wine about it.
what was it, Wine
Yeah.
About It workshop where they just got boozy and
It's a good
answered
time.
questions. It was phenomenal, strongly recommended. And one of the points that Brandy made towards the end of it was about the music, and it basically dovetailed with what you were saying, Andrew, which is that like we're not necessarily dancing to quote unquote swing music at this point in time, and musically, you interpret music with an Afro-Cuban
Uh-huh.
beat, or with a tropical house beat, or with a samba beat, or with a hustle beat differently than you do traditional swung rhythm. They are literally different forms of expression. So for me to be dancing to the music for a song with a tropical house beat, I am literally timing differently than I am for a
Yeah.
dance with a traditional swing rhythm in it. Or at the very least, I'm utilizing the music differently. That's probably a better way to put it because it's music theory wise, it's still 8 counts, you know, and you're using all of those 8 counts, but I'm utilizing those 8 counts differently
Yeah.
in my body in order to stay on time.
Well said. Damn.
And then that affects your judging.
Yeah.
You know, well, thank you. Like, is a judge capable of seeing that? What is the judge choosing to reward? And then in that whole stew, getting back to what I started with, which is that we have so little control over our results in this dance. So kind of at the end of the day, you really just have to value it for what it is and
Yeah.
choose the things that you're going to
So
care
let's
about.
let's play that game then, and then after that, we'll take the last 5 to 8 minutes and answer questions. Okay, so when you judge, what do
Awesome.
you look for?
Oh man, do
No,
we have more
well,
than
no,
five to
we
eight
this will be
minutes?
quick
Uh,
because again, yeah,
like right off the bat. Okay, so I'm gonna confess something, and this is gonna be a public confession in front of the 45 people who are watching. And if this gets me a few judging gigs, it is what it is. The first, ironically, based on our last kind of comment, the
yeah,
first thing that I see is quality of movement, and that's because that's the first thing that the eye sees literally when it sweeps a floor. I look for different things in a final than I do in a prelim, and I look at different levels for different things. But if you're just standing in the middle of a circle of dancers, a circle of people who are moving around you, and you literally just rotate and scan through, which is
yeah,
what I would say most judges do for the first songs, they kind of try to take in all the dancing around them.
yeah.
What pops out is quality of movement. What pops out is your training. It's are you able to control an action with your partner? Does it seem like your muscles are moving because they're coordinated and deliberate, or because they're just kind of flopping around out there? That's what first catches the eye. So that's what first catches my eye. The second thing that I would say that I notice is timing. And probably the
Yeah.
third thing that I would notice is partnering. And here's what's really interesting about that. I almost
Yeah.
value those in reverse order in this dance in terms of what I look for in a partner and what I look for in a good dancer. I think that your partnering in many ways is the most important thing that we do in this dance as a core social dance. I think that your timing is super critical because it's the fundamentals of everything that comes after that. And then finally, your quality of movement
Yeah.
is what makes you aesthetic to watch, but it rarely has anything to do with how you actually feel. Um, there are dancers that feel amazing that
Yeah.
might not have the best quality of movement. And the reason that that feels like it's flip-flopped,
Flop, flop, flop.
as Joel is saying, flop, flop, flop in the chat, is because I need to watch you longer, generally, to see the quality. Yes, timing, technique, and teamwork, but it's how you define those things. That's the thing, right? We're all looking for those things, but it's how you define them where all of the differences come in. And how I define how somebody uses timing or teamwork might be incredibly different
Chances are
from
good.
how somebody else does, right? So that's kind of the tricky stew that we're running into with these
Maybe
questions about
that's
judging.
yeah,
But just to kind of complete,
yeah, yeah.
super, super. Sorry, 1 second. With the partnering, I have to watch you for longer to see if you're a good partner or not. And in a prelim where I'm looking at 50 dancers and I've got about what is it, 3 songs, 90 seconds each song to look at all those different dancers, I don't have that much time to watch you. So it's really, really hard
Yep.
to see partnering in a short
I
period of
don't.
time.
I mean, I kind of just echo what you said. Really, there is not enough time to, unless there's just something glaring. So here's my criteria. Typically, I look for people that are not going to make it first and foremost. Like,
Yeah, honestly, same.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
man, it's
exclusionary initially.
I hate prelims. I absolutely hate judging prelims because it's negative as shit to me.
It's brutal. Oh yeah, for sure. Like so All American at Rose City, I think we cut straight
Yeah,
from prelims to finals, and we went from like 70 couples, 65 couples,
yeah,
something like that, down to 15, all right, or 12 or something. And on the one hand, it was brutal, and on the other hand, it actually made judging really easy. And I think that I had every couple that ended up making the final in the
yeah,
final, or they were like my first alternate. It was one or the other. Because you just look around and you've cut two-thirds of the dancers after the first song and a half, because you can just see immediately based on what you see the
yeah,
top couples producing that they're just not going to be there. And you have to kind of learn how to spend your
yeah,
time in an efficient way when you're judging.
yeah. Ultimately, at the end, I look for who's a better I look for who's the better dancers. I don't really. I mean.
Would
Well,
you care to
okay.
define
So
that, Andrew?
there's nothing like magical about it. Is how well do you do what you're doing, and did you hit the music well that day? You know, if there's a bunch of charades and it's a song that calls for it, cool. That's why Brad wins, because he usually picks songs that are. It's why he gets songs that are very dramatic, you know, and he gets songs that he knows that are easily interpretive. It makes sense that he would place with those. And you know, again, he said when he gets songs that are more based on just straight fucking musicality that are like, what's the name of the song? I can't remember. There's a really heavily instrumental tune that gets played a ton. Yeah.
Jammin'.
That unless you hit absolutely everything in it, you're just not going to place comparatively. So when it's interpretive, you know, I'll err on that way. But ultimately, I'm looking for how well somebody moves. Are they a dancer on their own? Is their partner a dancer on their own? Do they sync up well? And ultimately, really, I guess, ultimately, it's just, how did it make me feel? Did I enjoy it more? Then I probably want you to win. And that is, there's no easier definition of that. Like, that's just some annoying soup that happens. Maybe you got a good partner. Maybe you got
Yeah, and that's and that's sort of the now the struggle in that, of course, is that we both. I would say that we probably agree more with each other's viewpoints on dancing than an average judge agrees with another average judge's viewpoints on dancing. And we might sit down and watch the same videos right next to each other and have completely divergent opinions on who should have won a given contest. And that's kind of the nature of the beast here. That's something that we all just have to accept with this dance at the moment at its current form. And I mean, speaking purely selfishly and just in my own opinion, I would like it if there was a bit more codification of this dance. I would like it if we had just a little bit more of a sense of just the things that judges were looking for. I would like it if there was a bit more training with regards to the judging staff, as I believe that some people mentioned in the comments. There are more workshops right now for judging. There are some things coming up which are systems that people can learn to be able to judge more effectively. And then also, I think that this is a problem that's going to kind of solve itself over the next 5 to 10 years as a lot of the top professionals start to transition into being less active competing pros and more in that kind of Marianne role, where you're competing sometimes, but you're really being kind of a voice for the community. You're social dancing a lot, you're judging a lot, you're running events, whatever it might be. Because that's just going to increase the pool of qualified judges, particularly in routine divisions, which is a whole other ball of wax that we can do some other time. We're not doing that right now.
Let's open it up to people. If you have any questions, ask them now. We're over time, but I still want to take 5 minutes if possible and answer anything anybody has. If you don't, we'll sign off. But the thumbs up, the likes are going ape shit right now, and I think it's all from one guy. I think it's all Ian O'Gorman.
It's all from Dan. Oh,
but it looks quiet. I'm gonna see. And then there's an angry face that was thrown in. Who does that? I get
somebody was angered. Oh no!
With your
I made them angry.
Opinions, yeah,
it's a Hulk situation.
Good. That's why I love the internet though, is because you can say something well and diplomatically, and someone will find a reason to get mad. It makes me happy.
It's all right. It's all good. So Robert, I think, asked a question about All-American. Do you prefer traditional All-American or ones that sort of prioritize mixing up couple level, or just a straight up high-low? Or do you care at all, I guess?
I think it's fun and a throwaway competition just for a good time. No, please.
Go ahead. If you are...
Yes!
Oh man, and now people are spamming angry faces. I love it. We started a trend. Please spam
the internet is a pissed off kid in elementary school, man. It's you don't like that? Well, I'm just gonna urinate all over it.
All right, I'm officially hitting us with the angry face. I just angry faced us. Okay, so anyways, All Americans. I'm okay with any of these versions. I just want the event to be honest about it. And frankly, a lot of events lie about their All-American. and they say it's an All-American, but then they sort it 4 or 5 times until they see
Yeah.
that there weren't that many pro couples together. You know? So if you're going to do a mixed level open contest, do that. More power to you. I think that they're great. Some of my favorite dances are watching like a pro dance with a lower level
Yeah.
dancer and create something amazing together. Like, love it, I'm in. I just want the event to be
Yeah.
upfront about what you're getting yourself into. Because what I see all the time is people saying, "Oh no, 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 it was an all American, no, no," but you just look at the pairings and you're like, "This was not random sword. Like,
Yeah.
let's not
Oh,
lie
I
to
have a
ourselves
question for
about
you
it."
since nobody asks. Do you have a five? Top five, like leads, follows, anything like that? Pick your favorite.
Oh my
I think
God, you're
about
just
this
gonna
all the
ask me
time.
this
It
off
doesn't
the
have to be
cuff?
like a they're
Um,
better than so and so. You know what I mean? It's all preference.
can I name people like 5 leads whose
That's what I'm
dancing
going
I
for.
I
Yeah.
really like right now? For me, okay, so in no particular order, and this is not a draft. This is not me saying somebody's better than somebody.
No,
I have
you
to like very
don't. Just
carefully give a lot of
fucking come
caveats here.
on.
Yes, I
These
do.
are
These are just
These are
people that
Forrest's
I'm enjoying
absolute
right now.
favorite
Okay,
dancers,
so
and everyone
one,
else is a scrub.
I think
I
the
will cut
audience
you.
will cut
I will
you.
cut
Like,
you. Okay, so for me, no particular order. Kyle is like the OG. I don't think that I've ever not enjoyed watching Kyle dance. Like literally every single time that he has a Jack and Jill or a Strictly, I watch the video and I'm like, that was amazing. Because he is so clever and he is so musical and he
yeah.
is so wonderful to his partner. That's the first off the top of my head. Second, right now, Hugo. Hugo Miguez just had a
Truth.
freaking
Yep.
amazing dance with Cameo at Mad Jam. It was awesome. It was one of the better dances I've seen in a minute. And his dancing, to me in general, has just really grown and refined itself over the last couple of years in particular, and I really think that he's
Cool.
just one of the absolute top guys right now. Um, Ish, so my brother from another mother is Maxime, and I always love watching his dancing. He's competing a little bit less these days, I think. I haven't seen him at quite so many things, but I love his technique. I love his musicality. He had a wonderful dance with Tori. I think it was at Budapest, but I'm not sure where he like plays the trombone during it. I freaking love that dance. That dance was amazing. Geez. Um, now I'm just getting my own ahead about like naming
They
and
can
not
deal. It
naming
doesn't.
people. But
You
so
got two
those
more.
are three
Just
off the top of my head. Yeah, those are three off the top of my head that I really really love. Two more people who I really love. Um, I really love Marcus's dancing from
I
Marcus
don't
and
know who
Trent.
that
I think
is.
that that guy just has so much. There you go. So they won Strictly at
I'll look
Matt
him up.
Jam. He's a really cool dude, and
Cool.
Trent's really wonderful as well. You'd love him.
Oh, wait a
He has
minute.
so much flair.
I'm forgetting. He
What he
always
does, but
wears
he's
like
so
sweet
smooth.
vests. He usually wears red. I love Marcus. Oh yeah,
He
man.
often wears sweet
Yes.
vests. Yes, he wears a lot of sweet vests for sure, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
And Sean, I'm gonna say
Yeah.
Sean for my final one. I freaking love Sean's dancing. Sean again is somebody who I think that he's really continued to grow in his dancing, and that's something that I really love seeing at the top level is people who still
Yeah.
feel like they have to kind of push themselves and evolve as dancers and continue to work on their art, and that's something that he has
Yeah.
been extremely focused on. And so those are people that I would flag as like particularly right now these days
I like
enjoying
those picks,
watching them.
especially because I don't know everybody. That was
That
great.
was a terrifying exercising, and I feel very awkward
Well,
about like the 87 other people I
suck
would
it
have
up.
loved to
Like,
name just then. but but that was not like a
yeah.
top list. That's just like
I
who I'm
have a
watching a
top
lot of
list.
right now.
No, but
Oh God.
I'll do
Do you
both
want to do
because I'll just be
followers?
quick about it. Followers, I'll talk about a couple of them, but yeah, leads. Leads are different for me because obviously I like them for different things. You're in my top five, no question. Uh, No, every dance you do, you're a damn gentleman, and you always take care of people, and that is huge. So it's yeah, Forrest, John Kirkconnell is still my guy. I'm about that John Kirkconnell, man. Oh,
Hey,
dude, yeah. I still
love
one of the
John.
most musical dudes I know. Sean is in there.
I had one of the
Ditto.
best lessons I've ever had
He
from
and
John.
he and
He's
Sean
a great,
specifically
yeah.
influenced like everything that I do partner wise. So yeah, so Sean and John and you and my other two flip flop a ton, but being able to watch like Andrew Sonata over the last few years. I mean, I'm a little biased because we're homies, but like seeing the stuff he's trying to do and the way that he's starting to calm down and come into his own as a West Coast guy is an awesome journey to see. I dig it. And then the last one is PJ. Like just because PJ Turner is he's fire, man. Oh, he's
PJ is so much fun to watch. Like I love watching PJ dance. And what's great about PJ, what I love about him is that his dancing is incredibly expressive, but then
yeah,
just also he's incredibly expressive, right? And you can see how
yeah,
incredibly happy that dude is to be
yeah.
where he is doing what he's
He
doing
makes me
whenever he's doing
feel
it.
not
And
lame
that's just like,
because because
yeah,
I mean obviously I'm very emphatic about the things that I care about one way or the other. So to see somebody else do the same exact thing, like you're usually the guy who ropes me a little more to earth when we're hanging out, especially when we're on a line together. But watching PJ, I'm like, it's okay to be an expressive dork and just get out there and feel it. Yeah, like, and there's more. Like, I have a whole. If I listed out my real list of like my top leads, excuse me, it'd be forever. But
sure,
for
sure, sure.
follows,
I,
it
I
hurts,
was
man.
I
It's
was feeling the
it's not
pain while
great.
doing it, so
Yeah,
yeah,
I was
that
seeing
was
some
not
people give
fun.
like the angry face when I mentioned a couple people, which is surreal. But just all the
Just more angry
spam
faces,
angry
please. Chat
faces.
spam
I want
angry
everyone
faces.
who
I
watches
want
this
more
later to
angry
think that this is the
faces.
worst thing that's ever happened to the internet. So my follows are, I think they're a lot easier for me. And Brandy and Deborah, right off the top of my head, specifically for like they control so much and they do so much of what I want follows to do. Like
Yeah.
it's been 5 years since I danced with Brandy, and then to dance with her at Rose City Swing. Now that I'm like, this will be a good time. Then we can just close
Yeah.
out.
I mean, yeah, I guess we've sort of come to a natural conclusion here. I totally dovetail with all of the names that you
But yeah,
said.
specifically, if
Um,
like I want this to get back to Mia
and
because I think she's a fucking monster, and she's like, she might be my favorite right now. Mia, yeah,
hmm, yeah, I loved dancing with her at Rose City. I thought we had a great dance. I was very happy to be the
ouch.
and Forrest, as Brad said in that dance.
It was a good weekend,
Which
man.
I
Okay,
enjoyed
so
immensely.
and don't worry about who my fifth is
Yeah, it
because
was a
I
great time.
that always interchange it. Delancey, let's be real. Come on, she is though. Like
What
she
a
does
dad you can just
everything.
say,
I
Delancey.
mean, the
Yeah,
girl is. If she's one of those people, if only she knew how good she is and the shit that she can do. Ugh. But we should close
sure.
out, especially if the feed is getting weird. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for
I mean, it
being
was a
here. So
total pleasure
everybody,
doing this,
thank you.
man.
If you're watching this later, if you got booted and you came back or whatever, thank you so much for being a part of West Coast Live today. My co-host was Forrest Hanson. My name is Andrew Slack. Thank you guys so much. Go do the stuff that you love. Go have the best day that you've ever had, and we will see you again in 1 week's time. Bye.